8 years ago, I was on the streets,
8 years.
and I was on the streets for over 10.
Robert Morris remembers those days of living on the streets.
Well, I lived all over. I traveled with the buses.
He is now 73 years old and rents a room using his Social Security check. These days, he partners with the United Way to help the unhoused.
RVs are starting to pop up almost everywhere on Longmont streets, but it's not people camping, it's people living. And now the city's trying to do something to get these homes on wheels to move along.
Something disturbing is happening across America. Seniors who worked their entire lives are quietly losing their homes, and many are ending up in aging RVs, vans, and parking lots just to survive. They're not traveling. They're not chasing freedom. They simply have nowhere else they can afford to live. And this hidden crisis is getting impossible to ignore. America's homelessness crisis is increasingly becoming an aging crisis. The latest federal count found at least 745,652 people experiencing homelessness on a single night in January of 2025. Although that was an improvement from the year before, homelessness remained near historically high levels. Behind that headline number is something troubling. Many communities are confronting growing numbers of older adults who no longer have stable housing. This matters because homelessness at 60 or 70 is fundamentally different from homelessness at 25. Older people are more likely to have mobility limitations, chronic physical problems, difficulty working full-time, and a greater dependence on fixed retirement income. Losing housing becomes much harder to recover from. The financial warning signs are already visible among Americans who still have homes. In 2023, 12.4 million households headed by someone 65 or older were housing cost-burdened, meaning more than 30% of income went toward housing. That was 34% of older households, roughly 2.3 million more than in 2019. Even more concerning, 6.7 million older households were severely burdened, spending more than half their income on housing. Those numbers help explain why RVs, vans, and cars have become part of the senior housing story today. An older American may still receive Social Security and own a vehicle, yet no longer earn enough to qualify comfortably for an apartment. That creates a nearly invisible population. They may not be sleeping on sidewalks. They may simply be inside an aging motorhome, van, or car parked miles away from the neighborhood where they once lived. One of the most disturbing parts of senior homelessness is that it does not require a lifetime of homelessness first. For some older Americans, the collapse comes after decades of working, paying bills, and maintaining a home. Retirement changes the financial equation. A worker who once had wages can suddenly live primarily on Social Security, a small pension, or limited savings. Property taxes, insurance, rent, utilities, and maintenance do not disappear because someone stops working. Older homeowners are not immune. In 2023, 7.9 million homeowners 65 or older were housing cost-burdened, or 27.6% of older homeowners. They accounted for 1.7 million, or 47%, of the 3.6 million increase in cost-burdened homeowners since 2019. That shows owning a home outright does not guarantee a secure retirement. Someone can have no mortgage and still face thousands of dollars yearly in property taxes, insurance, utilities, and repairs. A furnace replacement or insurance increase can become a serious event when income is fixed. For renters, the situation can deteriorate even faster since they have no housing asset to sell. Consider what happens after one disruption. A spouse dies and income drops. A landlord raises rent. Savings are depleted. A homeowner cannot afford repairs or taxes. Eventually, the person sells, leaves, or loses the property. An RV may then look like a lifeline. Instead of paying rent, someone purchases a used motorhome and tries to stretch retirement income. This is why senior homelessness stays hidden. The transition is rarely house to sidewalk. It can be house to apartment, apartment to RV, then vehicle, then shelter or street. The numbers explain why so many retirees today feel trapped. As of June of 2026, the average retired worker receiving Social Security collected about $2,084 per month, roughly $25,000 a year. That amount does not cover housing alone. It also has to pay for food, utilities, transportation, insurance, medications, and countless other everyday expenses. Now compare that with America's rental market. Harvard's 2026 rental housing research found that 22.7 million renter households, 49% of all renters, were cost-burdened in 2024, spending more than 30% of income on rent and utilities. 12.1 million renter households were severely burdened, meaning housing consumed more than half their income. The supply of inexpensive apartments has also dramatically changed. Between 2014 and 2024, the number of rental units costing less than $1,400 per month fell by 9.3 million, while units costing $1,400 or more increased by 11.8 million. Imagine receiving around $2,084 monthly and facing $1,400 in rent. That is roughly 2/3 of the benefit gone before groceries, electricity, or transportation. Not every retiree receives the average, and Social Security statistics show substantial differences depending on earnings history and retirement age. This is where an RV starts looking attractive. Someone might think, why give a landlord most of my check when I could buy an older motorhome instead? But eliminating rent does not eliminate housing expenses. It simply replaces them with a different and often unpredictable set of costs. For an older American losing traditional housing, an RV can represent something important: time. It provides 4 walls, a locking door, somewhere to sleep, storage for belongings, and potentially a bathroom and kitchen. Compared with sleeping outside, those things provide enormous stability. That is why we need to distinguish recreational RV living from vehicle living caused by financial necessity. The person traveling across America in a $150,000 motorhome lives an entirely different reality from someone staying inside a 25-year-old RV because rent became unaffordable. Unlike a house, an older motorhome contains both a living space and, in motorized models, a genuinely complicated vehicle. The owner depends on plumbing, electrical systems, batteries, tires, brakes, a roof, and heating and cooling equipment. If you are financially comfortable, a major repair is an inconvenience. If you are surviving on roughly $2,000 a month, it can become a housing emergency. Older Americans also face another pressure. Younger vehicle dwellers may not face as severely care. Harvard researchers examining households age 75 and older found that after basic living expenses, only 24% had sufficient income to afford one daily paid visit from a home health aide. That creates a brutal combination. Someone may need to maintain an aging vehicle, buy food, pay insurance, cover fuel, and manage increasing care needs, all from retirement income. An RV can prevent immediate street homelessness, while leaving someone one breakdown away from it. If the vehicle stops running and the owner cannot repair or legally store it, they are not simply losing transportation. They may be losing transportation, shelter, and remaining possessions at exactly the same time. If RV living is difficult, why would an older person choose it? Because sometimes the alternatives look worse. Traditional renting often requires more than having enough money for the first month's rent. Applicants may face security deposits, application fees, income requirements, and credit screening. Once inside the apartment, rent continues every month regardless of whether retirement income keeps pace. Older renters can be particularly exposed. Recent Harvard research found that half of female renters 65 and older were housing cost burdened. Among older women renting alone, the rate reached 66%. For someone facing that pressure, an inexpensive RV can look like an escape hatch. Instead of committing to well over $1,000 monthly indefinitely, a retiree might use savings to buy an older RV outright. The vehicle offers privacy, a bed, cooking space, personal belongings within reach, and something that still feels like a home. Mobility can also help. Someone may relocate toward cheaper areas, stay near relatives temporarily, or move between permitted camping locations rather than being locked into one expensive rental market. But there is an important distinction. Cheaper than an apartment does not mean free. The owner may still face campground or RV park fees, fuel, insurance, registration, propane, generator costs, electricity, and maintenance. A large mechanical failure can instantly destroy whatever savings the move was meant to create. That is what makes this trend important. For financially secure retirees, RV living can mean freedom and adventure. For someone pushed out by housing costs, the exact same RV can represent something entirely different. It can be the cheapest roof they can still afford, and the thin line separating them from sleeping completely unsheltered. The biggest misconception about RV living is that once you own the vehicle, housing costs almost disappear. For seniors pushed into it because they can no longer afford housing, the reality is very different. An RV eliminates one major expense, apartment rent, but replaces it with several smaller expenses just as damaging on a fixed income. First comes the cost of somewhere legal to stay. Private RV parks and campgrounds charge nightly, weekly, or monthly rates, and desirable locations get especially expensive during peak seasons. Then there is electricity, propane, fuel, insurance, registration, laundry, internet, dumping fees, and maintenance. Repairs are where things get financially dangerous. Current estimates show common air conditioning repairs run roughly $150 to $1,200, while replacing an entire AC unit can cost around $800 to $1,500. Slide-out problems range from about $150 for minor work to $5,000 for major repairs. Those are not luxury upgrades. If an elderly person lives in Arizona or Florida in summer, working air conditioning can be essential. If plumbing fails, they may lose their toilet or running water. A leaking roof can create structural damage costing far more than the original repair. Motorhomes add another layer: engines, transmissions, brakes, tires. This creates an RV poverty trap. A senior moves in to cut housing costs, but does not have enough income to properly maintain the vehicle. Small problems get postponed because money is not available, and those problems grow larger and costlier. Eventually, the RV that was meant to provide affordable housing can become another burden, except now the owner may have nowhere else to go. For older Americans, housing is not the only expense that grows with age. Healthcare and long-term care matter just as much. Medicare provides critical protection, but it does not mean every healthcare expense disappears. Beneficiaries can still face premiums, deductibles, co-payments, prescriptions, dental and vision costs, transportation to appointments and services Medicare does not fully cover. Someone living on a modest retirement income may therefore be funding housing and healthcare from the same limited pool of money. Long-term care creates an even bigger problem. Harvard researchers examining adults age 75 and older found that after housing and basic living expenses, only 24% had enough remaining income to afford even one daily paid visit from a home health aide. Roughly 3/4 lacked sufficient income under that measure. Now imagine facing those costs while living inside an RV. An older person may need regular medical appointments but live far from a hospital. They may need medications requiring refrigeration while relying on an unstable electrical system. Mobility problems can make climbing RV steps, emptying waste tanks, or performing repairs extremely difficult. This is where one financial emergency can trigger another. Money intended for rent might go toward medical expenses. Savings intended for RV repairs may pay for dental treatment or prescriptions. Then the furnace, air conditioner, or vehicle breaks down. For a financially secure retiree, these are manageable problems. For someone already living in an RV because conventional housing became unaffordable, there may be no remaining cushion. The frightening part of senior RV homelessness is not simply living in a vehicle. It is having several vulnerabilities: housing, transportation, health, and retirement income, concentrated in one fragile situation. An inexpensive used RV can provide shelter, but age changes things. The cheapest motorhomes and trailers are often cheap for a reason, since they may already carry years or decades of wear. Water intrusion is one of the most destructive problems here. A small roof or window leak can damage insulation, walls, and flooring, and moisture can create mold. By the time soft floors or damaged walls become obvious, repairing the problem costs far more than resealing a small leak earlier would have. Then consider everything else. There is a water heater, furnace, refrigerator, batteries, plumbing, toilet, propane system, and air conditioner. Motorhomes add an engine and transmission, each needing maintenance eventually. Recent pricing shows how fast costs escalate. A common air conditioning problem can cost hundreds of dollars, while replacement can reach roughly $1,500. Slide-out repairs can reach $5,000 in serious cases, That matters because many low-income seniors are not choosing between fixing the RV and buying something fun. They may be choosing between the roof and groceries. So maintenance gets delayed. A leak is patched. A broken refrigerator becomes a cooler. A failing generator is used less. One air conditioner stops working. Eventually, the RV may still technically shelter someone but no longer function as a normal home. This is one reason the visible condition of some homeless RVs can deteriorate dramatically. It is not necessarily neglect. It can simply be economics. And once an RV deteriorates far enough, selling it may produce very little money. The senior can become trapped inside a depreciating home, needing thousands of dollars in repairs, but it may be the only home they have left. A house and an RV respond quite differently to extreme weather. Traditional homes generally have thicker insulation, permanent utility connections, and heating and cooling systems built for continuous residential use. RVs are lighter and built around mobility, and older models can have deteriorated seals, aging furnaces, inefficient air conditioners, and limited insulation. That becomes especially serious for seniors. During a heat wave, an RV in the sun can become dangerously hot without air conditioning. But running one requires reliable electricity, something a person parking on a street may not have. Generators can provide power, but require fuel and maintenance and must be operated safely. Running one continuously gets expensive for someone surviving on Social Security. Winter brings the opposite problem. Freezing temperatures threaten plumbing while forcing residents to spend more on propane or electricity. A furnace failure that is merely uncomfortable for a recreational camper can become an emergency for someone whose RV is their permanent home. Older adults are vulnerable to temperature extremes since the body's ability to regulate temperature declines with age, and some health conditions and medications increase that risk. This exposes a fundamental difference between recreational RVing and RV homelessness. A recreational traveler can often leave. If temperatures turn extreme, they can drive elsewhere, check into a hotel, or pay for a campground with full hookups. A low-income senior may not have those options. They may stay parked, unable to afford fuel to relocate, or avoid an RV park because the nightly cost is too high. So a broken air conditioner or furnace becomes far more than a maintenance issue. When the RV is someone's only shelter, climate control becomes a matter of basic safety. Owning an RV does not automatically give someone a legal place to live. This is one of the biggest differences between owning conventional housing and simply surviving in a vehicle. A homeowner controls a piece of property. A homeless RV resident may wonder how long they can stay where they are parked. The rules vary by city and location. Restrictions can involve overnight parking, oversized vehicles, street sweeping, time limits, and vehicle habitation. That means someone can have a functioning home on wheels but nowhere legally secure to put it. The scale of the problem has pushed governments towards safe parking. In May of 2025, San Diego announced a new safe parking location with 190 spaces, including accommodations for oversized vehicles. It became the city's fifth funded site, officials described as serving people and families in vehicles while connecting them with services and housing assistance. Congress has also weighed legislation supporting safe parking and funding for restrooms, hygiene facilities, maintenance, and rehousing assistance. The existence of these programs tells us something important, that vehicle homelessness is significant enough for governments to build infrastructure. But enforcement is moving the opposite direction in some places. San Francisco approved restrictions limiting oversized vehicle parking to 2 hours on city streets while creating temporary permits and assistance for some existing RV residents. For an elderly person, relocating an aging motorhome constantly is not easy, since every move consumes fuel and adds stress to the vehicle. So the problem becomes bigger than simply having an RV. You need a legal, safe, affordable place to put it, and for some of America's most vulnerable seniors, finding that place becomes a daily struggle. One reason America's senior homelessness crisis looks smaller than it is comes down to visibility and measurement. The most cited federal number comes from the point-in-time count, which estimates sheltered and unsheltered homelessness on a single night each January. HUD reported 745,652 people experiencing homelessness in January of 2025, including 266,320 who were unsheltered. But vehicle homelessness is hard to see. A 68-year-old sleeping in a motorhome behind a shopping center may not look homeless. Neither does someone quietly sleeping in a minivan, moving between relatives' driveways, or staying at campgrounds temporarily. That distinction matters since homelessness is not simply what we see in tents and shelters. Researchers have warned that annual counts are snapshots, not a measurement of everyone who experiences homelessness over a full year. People move between shelters, vehicles, temporary arrangements, and housing, making the population hard to capture perfectly. Older vehicle dwellers can be particularly invisible since many actively avoid attention. They park late, leave early, and keep belongings inside. An RV can hide poverty behind curtains and locked doors. That creates a major public perception problem. Many picture someone on a sidewalk when they hear homelessness. But an elderly person can have a social security check, a vehicle, and possessions, and still have no permanent home. That is the darker side of the RV crisis. The motorhome makes homelessness less visible without solving anything. Thousands can effectively disappear from neighborhoods without literally disappearing. They simply move into vehicles, parking lots, temporary sites, and campgrounds where the public rarely sees what happened to them. Moving into an RV does not solve the housing problem if you still have to pay hundreds, sometimes well over 1,000, to park it somewhere. This is where the economics get complicated. A financially struggling senior might buy an older motorhome, believing eliminating rent will dramatically reduce expenses. But unless they own land where they are legally permitted to stay, the RV still needs somewhere to go. Private RV parks can charge nightly, weekly, and monthly rates. Prices vary enormously by location, season, and amenities. Even modest fees add electricity, propane, insurance, fuel, maintenance, internet, and laundry on top. And America already has millions of older households struggling with housing expenses before RV costs are considered. Harvard's housing researchers reported that 12.4 million households, headed by someone 65 or older, were housing cost burdened in 2023, spending over 30% of income on housing. About 6.7 million were severely burdened, spending over half. That leaves little room for another arrangement. Suppose an older person moves into an RV but still pays $800 monthly for a site. Add several hundred for insurance, fuel, propane, and other necessities, and the savings versus a low-cost apartment shrink considerably. This explains why some struggling RV residents avoid conventional resorts, searching instead for cheaper campgrounds, public lands, temporary parking programs, or legal arrangements. But cheap locations often come with fewer amenities. The retiree faces a trade-off, paying more for electricity, water, sewer, and security, or saving money while losing services. The RV itself is not necessarily the solution. For someone on limited retirement income, the real challenge is finding affordable land underneath it. Retirement traditionally meant leaving the workforce after decades of work. For millions, that is changing. The Bureau of Labor Statistics projects adults 65 and older will make up 8.6% of the labor force by 2033, up substantially from prior decades. Participation among Americans 65 to 74 is projected to keep rising too. There are many reasons older people keep working, from enjoying their careers to wanting social interaction. But for others, employment is survival. The average retired worker on Social Security got roughly $2,084 monthly in June of 2026, competing with housing, groceries, transportation, insurance, utilities, and healthcare. That helps explain something visible in the retirement economy: seasonal jobs, campground work, retail, and part-time delivery. For an RV-dwelling senior, work becomes especially important. Some campgrounds use work amping, where RVRs perform tasks for a campsite, wages, or a mix of both. For comfortable travelers, that is a lifestyle choice. For a senior without permanent housing, a campsite tied to employment becomes part of their housing strategy. But there is an unavoidable problem. People eventually grow too old to keep working. A 67-year-old might supplement Social Security with 20 hours of work weekly. At 75 or 80, that work becomes considerably harder. That creates a countdown for vulnerable seniors. If someone's retirement only works while they keep earning wages, what happens when their body no longer allows it? For someone with savings, the answer is retirement. For someone living in an aging RV, because housing is already unaffordable, losing the ability to work could mean losing the last buffer keeping them housed. For most Americans, losing a vehicle creates a transportation emergency. For someone living in a motorhome, it can create a transportation and housing emergency at once. That is what makes RV homelessness financially dangerous. A motorhome combines two important assets in one machine. The engine gets someone to work, stores, medical appointments, and legal parking. The living area provides their bed, belongings, food storage, and shelter. One mechanical failure can compromise both. Consider tires alone. Large RVs may need 6 tires, and replacement can reach into the thousands depending on size and type. Then there are brakes, suspension, batteries, generators, cooling systems, and drivetrain problems. A serious engine or transmission problem is devastating. Even towing creates complications, since motorhomes are larger and heavier than passenger vehicles, often requiring specialized towing. At the repair facility, the owner faces another question. Where do they sleep, meanwhile? A secure traveler can rent a hotel room and authorize the repair. Someone living month to month may not have either option. The problem worsens when a disabled RV sits somewhere it is not legally allowed to stay. Citations, towing, and storage charges can begin accumulating, and eventually recovering the vehicle becomes financially impossible. That is the tipping point policymakers often miss. An older person does not need to lose a house to become unsheltered. They may already have lost the house years earlier. Their RV became Plan B. Then the motorhome breaks down, and Plan B disappears too. The vehicle that represented someone's remaining independence can become an immovable structure requiring thousands of dollars they do not have. For seniors without family support or savings, one mechanical failure can push vehicle homelessness into street homelessness. Housing loss changes more than where someone sleeps. It dismantles the social structure of their life. Imagine living in the same community for 30 years where your doctor is nearby, you know your neighbors, and your pharmacy, church, and family are all within a familiar area. Then housing becomes unaffordable. Moving into an RV can preserve shelter while separating someone from that network. The United States already faces a major problem with isolation among older adults. The CDC reports about 1/4 of adults 65 and older are socially isolated, and loneliness carries serious health risks. Vehicle homelessness can worsen this. Someone may move repeatedly since parking rules change. A campground may impose stay limits. Seasonal prices rise. A spot becomes unavailable. Fuel determines how far a person can travel. Every relocation moves them farther from people and services. This helps explain the phrase "seniors are vanishing." They are not disappearing, just less visible. A former neighbor who once lived 3 houses away might now be 40 miles away in an RV park. Another may rotate between parking spots or spend weeks on public land before returning for supplies. Their community may never know what happened. Isolation can make emergencies dangerous. If someone falls, gets sick, or loses heat in an RV in winter, there may be no neighbor to notice. That makes senior RV homelessness different from the glamorous image tied to life on the road. Freedom requires resources. Without money, transportation, and a support network, mobility becomes instability. And when older Americans constantly move to find somewhere affordable and legal to sleep, the result is an increasingly invisible population disconnected from the communities they once called home. The most important part of this story is not what is happening today, but what demographics suggest could happen next. The country is getting older. The Census Bureau projects that by 2030, every baby boomer will be 65 or older, meaning 1 in 5 residents will be retirement age. At the same time, older households are already vulnerable. Harvard's research found 12.4 million older households were cost-burdened in 2023, with 6.7 million spending over half their income on housing. Now combine that with savings. Federal Reserve data show that among families with retirement accounts, balances vary widely, and many approach retirement without enough assets to replace decades of income. Social Security remains especially crucial for older Americans. As of June of 2026, about 59.2 million Social Security and SSI beneficiaries were 65 or older. A tiny share experiencing housing failure translates into hundreds of thousands of people. That is why RV homelessness should not be viewed as a trend. It can function as an early warning. First, retirees cut spending, then downsize. Some move in with family, others relocate to cheaper states, and some buy trailers. Those who exhaust options may enter shelters or go unsheltered. America therefore faces a critical question. What happens when a generation that worked 40 or 50 years reaches retirement but cannot afford a place to live? The RVs in parking lots and campgrounds may represent one of the final stages before that question is impossible to ignore. America's next crisis may not look like tents. It may look like millions of Americans trying to keep a roof on wheels. No American should work their entire life only to spend retirement searching for a safe place to park and sleep. But for some seniors, that's becoming reality. Do you think America's retirement system is failing older people? Tell us in the comments, and don't miss our next video because this housing crisis goes much deeper than RVs.